Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. Let me know what your favorite altcoin is in the comment section and why I should be buying it. And without any further ado, well, let's jump right into it. I guess we've circled back around to optimistic news. I'm not really sure. The managing partner and head of research at FundStrat Global Advisors is predicting that Bitcoin's market cap could one day reach as high as the valuation of gold. Yeah, see, full circle. We're back at the gold thing all over again. One of the main things, discussions, topics within the cryptocurrency space for some reason has constantly been about gold and Bitcoin overtaking gold and Bitcoin's price passing gold. That was also a thing thousands of years ago when Bitcoin, like one Bitcoin passed the valuation of one piece of gold. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And for some reason, people keep having a discussion recently. I don't know what's going on about Bitcoin taking over gold's price all over again. I don't know how we circled back here. In a new interview with Natalie Brunel, Lee says that Bitcoin's market cap could soar more than 1,100% from the current value, reaching $16 trillion for its market cap. Lee believes investors will increasingly flock to Bitcoin as a more useful store of value than gold. Well, I mean, not to throw this out there, but not a lot of people are investing in gold. A lot of people who are into crypto were previously into gold, and gold has not given the same returns as, and I mean, you can go across the entire board. It's not even just Bitcoin. Litecoin has outperformed gold. I was going to say Tron, but let's not go to that discussion. Gold doesn't have a really strong track record for like increasing and like making people rich anymore. You can stay the same kind of rich and lose money to inflation, but that's about all you're going to get. He said, I think that a minimum target for Bitcoin, when does Bitcoin have to reevaluate whether it's peaking, is when the value of Bitcoin exceeds the value of above ground gold today, and that's $16 trillion. And the reason I think that's a fair benchmark is that gold might have some industrial uses and it has jewelry uses, but the principal reason is its $16 trillion of value is it's viewed as almost a singular hedge against currencies and against calamity. It's really... Tell me if I'm weird. Tell me if I'm weird. Tell me, please tell me if I'm being weird. I find gold to be so primitive. When I watch documentaries about kings and queens and emperors from thousands of years ago, these people had their people dig into the ground to find rocks. And they found a way to like make fire hot enough that they melted those rocks and those metals together to make, you know, forms of jewelry. The idea that, once again, tell me if I'm weird. I find it incredibly odd that people still use gold at all. And I mean that from like the 1950s and 60s and 70s. Have you ever, if you get a chance, try and find one, like the technologies that we have now, like we assume that we, you know, like we're just getting them now, but like we've had a lot of this stuff since the 50s and 60s. There's videos of people in France, I think in the 20s, who were on like escalators and stuff like that, you know, they were like the first prototypes of them, but you know, what have you. Even like the Roombas and all these little floor cleaning robots. They had the first iterations of them in the 1950s. They didn't work out that well, but they had the first iterations. So when I look at all the stuff that we have now and think that like, this is me, that people still use checks is crazy. Like they're one of the easiest ways that get, to commit fraud. That people still use paper money. Like, we live in a near digital, completely digital world. Of course, we ourselves are still physical, but everything we do is like most of our lives are spent completely looking at a computer, looking at a screen. We even send value digitally all the time. Paper money seems weird to me. The idea that like we have people in power around the world, elected or otherwise, who collect metal that then gets melted down and they go like, this is the thing that we're going to value everything based off of. This is the last thought. There's an episode years ago from South Park. I forgot what season it was from, but they were visited by aliens. And part of the test from the aliens was to see if they would use like fake space gold. So like there was like a alien came to Earth, and like on his ship there was like these I think they were like red ruby kinds of things, and they were told that it was like space money. But the problem is that everyone on Earth began to use that as like their new form of currency and use that as like their thing. And then finally the alien reveals at the very end, this isn't a spoiler, it's like a 15-year-old episode. He's like, space gold? Like, that's not a thing. Like we don't even use money anymore. Like, what are you all talking about? Like, it reminds me of that all the time, that like, to even have a discussion. Like, we're still doing things and using things that we used thousands of years ago. Not even from the perspective of like, we have Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain now, but it's like, people are still using checks. People are still using like a tree that's been cut down, watered down, put ink on it, and they're using that as a source of value. Like, think of what gold is. It is a literal rock. When you think of like what diamonds are, it is a stone that someone found underground that someone got a monopoly on and say, hey, look, this is pretty. Like, give me money for this. It's a weird concept. Like, none of it actually has any value. If you like sit there and think about it, none of this has any actual value. We have to decide on things that have value so that we can put numbers to them, so that we can say like, I can buy stuff that someone else also created and put a value to with them. It's a very odd concept. Try and think of it. Anywho, yeah. So for some reason, the last couple of weeks, there's been a bit of like gold news re-entering the market. I'm not really sure why. Sure, why not? At some point, Bitcoin is going to pass by gold's valuation, but I don't know. Okay, moving along. Also in popular news, MetaPlanet is back again. MetaPlanet is that company in Japan that keeps buying Bitcoin. Apparently, they now have purchased over 1 billion yen worth of Bitcoin. They purchased 20.38 Bitcoin at an average price of, it keeps saying 9 million yen. I don't know what 9 million yen is. Their total Bitcoin holdings now stand at 245 Bitcoin. Cool. They're buying some Bitcoin like every single week. They're a company in Japan, I believe, maybe based in Tokyo, who announced that they no longer have faith in the Japanese yen because of its crumbling valuation. The Japanese yen is not doing well at all and has to do with printing of money, and it also has to do with the deliberate devaluation of the currency to promote tourism and trade. That's how money works. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, a lot of the devaluation you see in currencies happening right now is deliberate. I mean, it's all deliberate as far as like inflation is concerned, but the general idea is that as a country, if your economy is not doing too hot, what you do is you devalue your currency to make trade easier and better and more appealing for other countries around you. So yeah, MetaPlanet's back in the news. Congratulations to them. I don't really know what to say there. Cool. Fantastic. Moving along. In God Save the Queen news, because everyone thought this was the best news since sliced bread. Electric vehicle maker Tesla did not sell any Bitcoin during the second quarter of the year, according to their latest quarterly report. So we have a situation in the cryptocurrency space where people will not stop drooling over Elon Musk, and I sincerely don't get it. I don't want to get it. It's incredibly weird. that so many people like find this man to be like God on earth. The second part is that a couple of years ago, Tesla and I guess also subsequently Elon Musk announced that they were going to be buying Bitcoin or had bought Bitcoin or were using Bitcoin as a reserve. This is back when, people keep forgetting, when Elon Musk was trying to get control over Bitcoin and over its code, and that didn't work. So he went to the people from Dogecoin and then began to promote Dogecoin for a number of years. And then at some point that same exact time, we heard from Elon Musk, or what was it, that they had sold off some of their Bitcoin, and that was the saddest news that anyone had ever heard. People were so annoyed and upset. They couldn't believe it. They felt betrayed. It sounds like a joke. I'm not joking. People were literally crying on social media. I don't understand. Elon Musk loves Bitcoin, right? It's like that thing recently online where he also did the laser eyes and it wasn't Bitcoin laser eyes, and people got upset because it wasn't Bitcoin laser eyes. And then Elon Musk also said something negative about Bitcoin. So everyone's just in a bit of a tizzy because their hero doesn't love the thing that they love as well. So we heard that Tesla had purchased Bitcoin years ago and then subsequently had also sold off a bunch of them because they were trying to see the actual liquidity within the market, which apparently played out very well. But every quarter, as Tesla releases their reports, they announce that they haven't bought any Bitcoin, which usually actually ends up making very negative news because people are constantly wondering, why Tesla no buy Bitcoin? And it's like, Tesla's worried about Tesla and the fact that people aren't buying their cars, and a lot of their cars keep breaking down on highways and no one's really using them as much as they were before. They're not really worried about Bitcoin. But when they release their quarterly report, people scour through the reports looking to see desperately if they still have sold or have bought any more Bitcoin. So a couple of the last year and a half, when Tesla wasn't buying and still is not buying any more Bitcoin, people were crying. Like literally, you think I'm joking? No, people were really upset. The other part is that as or when they don't, or people get the news that they haven't sold any Bitcoin, it's now jovial news. Yeah, they didn't sell off the thing that they don't really care about. Woo! The company did not engage in any Bitcoin transactions for the 8th consecutive quarter. 8th consecutive quarter. 8th consecutive quarter, maintaining its stash of approximately 9,720 Bitcoin, worth around $640 million at the current price. This goes back to the please stop worshiping, please, get up, stop worshiping rich people and rich companies because they don't care about you or your money or that you're in the cryptocurrency space. I don't really know what more to say onto that, but this was also, as you might have imagined, incredibly popular news because the word Tesla's there. Can people explain to me why you want a Tesla? I ask because I've seen a lot of videos of women crying and being like, it's my dream car. And then they spend an enormous amount of money on one. They get it. And then I'm like, woo, you got it. Is it for status symbol? Is it because you feel futuristic? Do you think that Elon Musk will call, I'm not joking. Do you think he'll call you in the car one day? Hey, surprise, it's me, Muskie. How's the car? Because I remember being a kid. Watching TV with my uncle very clearly. And I remember we were watching, and it's crazy the memories that stick in your head. We were watching TV and I remember there was a car commercial. It was some Ferrari, Maserati, the one with the horse or the cat. It had some animal on it, but it was a sports car. And it was those really low 1990s sports cars where when people get out of it, it's very awkward because they have to stand up again. The cars were on the ground. If you pass by a speed bump, you would damage the car, those. And I remember it was red. And he was almost drooling over it. He was oh, to have a car like that. And I think maybe that's why the memory sticks in my head, because it was I never saw value in a car as a kid. I just got into them. They drove me places. I remember seeing that same exact car years ago in some, I don't remember where it was, in a movie or wherever I saw it. And I remember thinking that car was so much money. So much money when I was a kid, and now it's worth nothing. No one wants it. It's literal old news. Like, it has no value except for, like, this was in the line of cars that were produced that cost $95,000 and normal people couldn't buy them. So when I look at a lot of cars that pop up now, they're not limited edition. They're not anything special, but these cars, 180,000, 250,000. Like, if you want all the, you know, if you want the works, 300K for this car. And I'm like, in 3 years, that car is going to be worth less than half of its value. No one's going to want it. No one's going to want to really buy it from you because everyone's brainwashed into buying like the newest, coolest, shiniest car that's out there. So like, what's the reason for wanting a Tesla? It's just a really expensive thing of something else that you could buy for. I've seen like beautiful looking cars brand new for like 55,000, which I think is also a bit of a scam that cars are still that expensive. But like, why the? It's a real question. It's a real question. I've seen so many things on Instagram. Yeah, you know, you scroll by, and people like literally, oh my gosh, my dream car, and I'm like, why? What's the? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's different priorities. That's the Tesla did not sell any Bitcoin. Oh, thank goodness. I was afraid that Bitcoin's price would fall if they had sold any. That would have been sad. Okay. Let's move on. Also in the news, people are once again not understanding what's going on. We're going to breeze right over this one. There are a lot of days where there are like huge outflows from the Ethereum ETFs. A lot of the days is actually also like inflows. What? Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? Also inflows into the Ethereum ETFs as well. For those of you who were wondering why prices aren't like skyrocketing, I made sure to put multiple skyrocketing this like you really understood, is basically because of Grayscale. So for those of you who missed the video, it was about a week ago, I think the day before the Ethereum ETFs launched. For those of you who are unaware, every other Ethereum ETF has fees of 0.1%, 0.25%, 0.15%. Grayscale has a fee of 2.5 percentile points, the same exact thing as their Bitcoin ETF. So in January, when we had the ETFs launch, for those of you who don't remember, I remember prices went down. Do you remember this? Prices went down for, oh gosh, what was it? It was for a good, I think like month. And everyone was very perplexed as to why they were going down. Everyone was like, where are these outflows coming from? It was all from Grayscale. It took about a month for that to reverse, and that's where we currently are right now. So you can once again thank Grayscale for the really weird price movements of all the coins that we've been seeing. You'll see like some really good days where prices are going up, but that's because the inflows outpace the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of outflows from Grayscale. Why Grayscale continues to have these exceptionally large fees is a gigantic question mark in the sky, because they're basically only ruining the market and helping to manipulate prices. But maybe there's some rich people stuff behind the scenes that we just simply don't understand. Yeah, Grayscale has an enormous amount of Ether outflows every single day. It will slow down at some point, but until we get to that point, we will remain under a $5,000-$6,000 Ether. Also in Bizarro World news, you might remember before, Grayscale once again has a 2.5% fee for their normal Bitcoin ETF. They said that they're not going to lower the fee because they want the market to mature. That literally makes no sense in English. So Grayscale applied a couple of months ago for a mini Bitcoin ETF, and now it's been approved. The problem is, and the really weird Bizarro World thing, is that instead of lowering their fee for their Bitcoin ETF from 2.5% to half of a percentage point where every other company has it, They said instead we're going to make a mini Bitcoin trust. Similar to how you also missed it a couple days ago, they also just launched their Ethereum mini trust. It doesn't make any sense. Instead of lowering their Ethereum ETF fee from 2.5% to 0.5%, they created an Ethereum mini ETF, and the US SEC has just given the green light to the Bitcoin mini ETF from Grayscale, allowing it to be listed and traded on the New York Stock Exchange ARCA. I'm not sure what the plan is, what the levels of manipulation are, but something, it's not even fishy. Something just smells completely rotten because none of this makes any sense. So cool. That's the Grayscale news. Something's wrong. I don't know what's happening, but nothing is making sense anymore. Okie dokie. Let's move on. In probably some of the, I'm going to try and be nice, but I know that I'm going to rant. I try not to categorize things in stupid news. I try. If you've been watching this channel for a while, hello. If you've been watching it for a short period of time, even for, I would give you the last 3 months. Finish this sentence. Bitcoin is for everyone. Correct. Bitcoin is for the world. Bitcoin is for the masses. Bitcoin is for 7.9 billion people on the planet. You might wonder why I said 7.9 billion, not, the complete 8 billion plus. It's because I'm counting out the very wealthy, rich people who already have money, who are part of the old system, who made the old system. The point of Bitcoin is to get away from the old corrupt system. Is everyone in agreement with me? We want Bitcoin to be as decentralized as possible. If you mine all the, so for those of you who weren't here before, years ago, part of the problem was is that more than 51% of Bitcoin's mining was happening within China. Everyone was in an uproar. Everyone was losing their minds. And now we have a situation where I think it's more than 40%. Of Bitcoin mining is happening within the United States. Can anyone tell me what happened before that we were also just talking about a couple of months ago? Yeah, when Texas had that cold snap. For those of you who don't remember, it got really cold in Texas. Texas has like one power grid for the entire state. The power grid had problems, and nearly all of Texas had power with electricity. Can anyone tell me the other problem? The majority of Bitcoin mining within the United States is happening inside of Texas. It's centralized. You want Bitcoin mining to happen nearly equally across every single state within the United States. So if the United States should, the United States should not have 30 or 40 or 50% of the control of Bitcoin mining power. That's the first part. It should be around 15%, with Canada having 15%, Mexico having 15%, Latin America having, you understand, equal. That's the point of the network. That's the point of the entire thing. You're going to see what point I'm going to make. Because the problem is that when we had that cold snap, a huge portion of Bitcoin mining power went offline. The point of decentralization is to be decentralized. The point of Bitcoin is to be in the hands of the masses, of the people, so that the people have the power, so that we're not constantly drooling over rich people and Elon Musk and Mike Novogratz and the guy from Dell and the guy from Van Eck, so that they don't have all the power because they already have all the power. The people who already have all the money don't need the Bitcoin. It's the masses. It's the everyone, so that everyone has economic power over themselves and can move money how they so choose in their daily lives, and Bitcoin's price goes up and more people use it, and the everyday average person becomes rich. Did everyone get that? I feel like at some point maybe I was speaking in Japanese and maybe some people didn't get me. We are in a very weird, very odd situation right now in the cryptocurrency space, where people keep forgetting the entire point of everything I just said. You all heard my words. If you didn't hear them, you can click the little button and rewind it to rehear exactly what I just said. We've gotten to the point where even Bitcoin maximalists sound like the people in 2008 and 2009 who ruined the financial system. Michael Saylor, executive chairman of MicroStrategy, believes that the US government should hold the majority of the world's Bitcoin. I'm going to say that one more time. A Bitcoin maximalist has announced he thinks that instead of billions of people holding on to Bitcoin, using Bitcoin for its intended purpose, he thinks that the US government should hold more than 51% of the world's Bitcoin. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with that sentence? If you sit there and argue that it's a problem that China has 51% control over the mining power, but you think it's okay for one government to have more than 51% of all the coins in this network, you're insane. The point of all of this is to help out people. When you see a rich person get on stage talking about how much they love Bitcoin and you literally tell them to buy more, you are ruining the space. No. And I know this isn't a guess. This isn't like a guesstimate. This isn't some futuristic whatever. I know for a fact the way that if you look at any documentary of how rich people are now, you would understand the words that I say. Rich people control everything. They own everything. Find things online, whatever articles about families who own certain cities. If you get a chance, Google what families own Washington, D.C., London, Paris, Italy, Rome. It's there. We have a system, and I'll be honest with you. I think all is lost. I think Bitcoin is going to succeed in unforeseen ways. Bitcoin is either going to zero or it's going to $1 million. There's no in between. There's no in between. The problem is the people who are going, and I know it, the people who are going to benefit from that $1 million, it's rich people. Plain and clear as day. We, for some reason, and we're not going to get back to it. There's no saving the space anymore. Everyone has lost track, count, view of who and what Bitcoin's for. Completely, in its entirety. I would even dare say it's less than 1 or 2% of people who have any actual care as to what Bitcoin is for now. Their desire is for Bitcoin simply to go up in price so that other coins go up in price so that they become rich. But they're not looking at the long stretch of things. What do you think happens? Have you ever opened up a history book? I know we're talking about history a lot here. If you look back at thousands, history repeats itself. If you look back at thousands of years of history, what happens to the people who are sitting at the top of the castle, who have all the food, who have all the gold, who have all the jewelry, who have all the money? What do the town folks do at the bottom? We have gotten to a space where it has become normalized for people to, in crypto. Years ago, when I got into this space, we didn't want billionaires in this space because we knew what they did and what they would do and what they were planning. So when you start hearing that all these people from BlackRock and Van Eck and Grayscale and yada yada are in the space, cool. You can stand by me, but do make sure that you don't step on the toes and the feet and the faces of all these other people who are also in the space. To have someone who champions Bitcoin, like Michael Saylor, say that he thinks one government on the planet should hold the majority of the world's Bitcoin is insane. That's like someone saying that the majority of Bitcoin mining should happen in the United States. What happens if there are power outages? What happens to the integrity of the network? What happens to your money? Is no one thinking ahead anymore? No one is thinking like 5 steps ahead? If we have power outages, or if we have this fail, or if this goes down, and you have 65% of the Bitcoin mining, well, guess what? The entire network is vulnerable. People make extra Bitcoin, people destroy it. Well, guess what? The whole system's gone because you wanted centralization. Why are we having discussions about centralization again as a good thing? And then people standing up and going, yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you understand how easily... I feel like I'm talking to a wall sometimes. And once again, and listen, I assume if you're here, if you're listening, if you're still watching the video, as I always say, I assume you have a brain. That's not a joke. Like, I assume you understand the words that I'm saying. If anyone agrees with Michael Saylor, you don't understand what's coming or what the point of this space is for. In 10 years, rich people are going to control Bitcoin all over again, the same way that they control the current system, and there's going to be no escape from that system. What do you do if Bitcoin goes to $23 million per coin and you, your friends, and your family have none of them? Your entire town has... You think people don't have money now? There are people, their wages, they make $18,000, $20,000, $23,000 a year. They can't afford anything. What do you think happens if Bitcoin goes up to $18 million per coin? How do you think these people are? What's the number? I think it's more than 60%. I think it's a number. More than 60% of Americans right now are like struggling paycheck to paycheck or on the cusp of what would be considered poverty. And you would assume that the numbers for poverty are like, he's making like $100 per month. Usually it's around, I think, $19,000 per year. The majority of people in America. It feels like a lot of what's happening in crypto is, and I mentioned it before, it's like an echo chamber, but like an echo chamber of stupidity. The vast majority of people aren't looking ahead as to what the repercussions will be or would be if all the mining happens within America. If the US government, do you know why Bitcoin was created? It's because of the nonsense that happened in the US. It's the economic policies of the United States that spread across the world that were allowing people to buy these terrible mortgages that crashed the system. Bitcoin isn't a solution for people in power to become good people and to change their economic policies. It's meant to be an economic policy that's on the side that the terrible corrupt system is forced into. The dollar inflates so much that they have no choice but to begin to back it by the dollar. It's not that the US should accumulate all the Bitcoin to centralize it. It's this weird, what's going on? The last couple of months are getting worse and worse. It's this like degradation of the mind when it comes to like what the point of this space actually is. He says that the US government should hold the majority of the world's Bitcoin, arguing that this would strengthen the US dollar. The US, I don't know how to tell you this. The people in charge of the US dollar, of the government, of the Fed, are not going to switch economic policies anytime soon. These people are not going to... Do you understand how deeply entrenched the US dollar is into and as someone like Michael Saylor should understand this. The US dollar is in everything, and it's collapsing, and it's because of the economic policies that are making rich people richer. Those policies are not going to change because the people who benefit from that are the people in power. Bitcoin is the new system to get away from the old system. And once again, you would assume that someone like Michael Saylor would understand that and would never even say these words. But he's also said some pretty weird stuff in the last... I forgot what the other thing was. It was about half a year ago. I forgot what it was. And I sat there and I was like, what? Like, what are you... I forgot what it was. But it was something similar to this. It was something very like, who cares about poor people? Let's make sure that all the rich people... It was something... I forgot what it was. But I was like... Do you understand that billions of people would benefit from this system? Trying to keep things the same is literal insanity. Drawing parallels to historic acquisitions, he views Bitcoin as a critical asset for the future, emphasizing, he said this, and I quote, "The country gotta look to the future. And the future of the country is in cyberspace, and Bitcoin is, in essence, Cyber Manhattan." He said those words. Bitcoin is, in essence, Cyber Manhattan. The country gotta look to the future. I think we've gotten to a very peculiar fork in the road, fork in the blockchain, as it were, right now. I personally think Bitcoin is kind of lost and gone forever. Bitcoin is now in the hands of the very wealthy. I hate that there was so much skepticism for Bitcoin in the early days by people, by propaganda, by the same exact people who were buying up all the Bitcoin. These were the people who told everyday normal people not to get into it years ago. It's the same exact. For those of you who weren't here, you can Google this. In 2017 or 18, there were two YouTubers who were making videos online about how dangerous and evil Bitcoin was. This isn't a joke. You can Google this. How terrible Bitcoin was, how Bitcoin was for criminals and yada, yada, yada. And we found out that these two people were making videos being funded by the Polish government. You can look it up. It was very, 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 I mean, it was everywhere. And I sit there, you think about how many people didn't get into crypto in Poland because of, like, and those people, like, when they were found out, their channels disappeared, but the damage is done. I got into Bitcoin like really believing in the ideas of Satoshi Nakamoto, of Andreas Antonopoulos, and a lot of the earlier people, that this was the way that we would get away from the old system, that this is the way that we would make sure that the other 4 billion people on the planet who've been kept out of the monetary system by JP Morgan Chase, by BlackRock, by Van Eck, look it up. It's literally all there on the internet for you. That this would be the new way for us to move away from the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. Not having to worry about debt anymore. The idea of debt being issued on Bitcoin is also nonsense. It's meant to be a transparent network where what you have is what you have. You can't claim that you have more because you don't. I can see exactly how much you have in your wallet. We've integrated so much of the old system now that it's basically normalized. And this will only continue. This isn't going to go away with all these ETFs, with all the futures, with all the derivatives that we have. It's really it's disappointing. I won't lie to you. This is why I think a lot of times when we do hear things from Jack Dorsey or a lot of these other people, it's still them kind of like being on this grind of being like, Well, what I'm doing now is making sure that people in Africa and Latin America have access to Bitcoin, or that we're making these new apps to make sure that, billions of people have access. Like, it seems to be the only thing that the originals actually care about. Like, we can live in a completely different world. That's the thing that gets me. I think there's so much hope that's lost by the everyday person that you forget that we have all the tools in front of us for a very different world. Like, to live in literal abundance in all aspects, in every single thing. When you look at the way that the world is run now, it's run by the people who want to maintain their power. There's a reason why you might not remember it. I remember this. When I was 18, there were so many discussions as to why EVs, electrical vehicles, were nonsense, were garbage. I remember watching the news, and people on the news in the States were making fun of electric vehicles. These people who own these car companies have stakes in the news platforms. So of course they're going to tell you that electric vehicles are terrible until the electric vehicle market in another country ends up taking over theirs, and then they start promoting electric vehicles. I remember being young and everyone was talking about how those windmills and solar panels were absolute nonsense. No one needs those. They were all funded by the electric companies, many of them who have a complete monopoly, like not even in your country, like around the world. If you look into the power of these electrical companies, they typically they're running the electrical power for multiple countries. The issue is that as all these things get cheaper and people realize that they're saving more money, these companies then start to produce their own solar panels, and they tell you that wind power and solar power are the new way to go because they're producing that thing. It's constant brainwashing. It's constant propaganda. The earliest people who told other people not to get into I remember making videos about this constantly. And then we'd hear about them 2 years later, and I would make a video and I'm like, you guys remember a year and a half ago, this guy was on CNBC. He was on Fox Business. No. Bitcoin's absolutely for criminals. And then he comes out at some point and goes, yeah, I have $1 billion in Bitcoin. I love, Bitcoin's the future. And I'm like, and then everyone loves him. Everyone pays no mind to the fact that he lied to them. It's so incredibly weird. You give all the power to these maniacs, all of the power over and over. Someone creates a new system, a new thing that gets us away from them. These people own tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. They're going to be worth $175 billion just from the Bitcoin that they own. And then you have your friends and your family who aren't paying attention because they were lied 2 years ago, who still believe the lies about electric vehicles, about windmills, about solar panels. They're going to brag to you one day that they have 20,000 Satoshis. And then you'll look up and you'll see these other people have hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin while the everyday person is back in the same exact loop. Forever, it's just going to happen. Bitcoin is the new system. Bitcoin either goes to zero or it goes to 1 million. Bitcoin either fails in its entirety or takes over the world. Those are the only two options. And when it does take over, when it does finally get to the masses, these people are going to be fighting over scraps. There's no new Bitcoin hitting the market. The only people who are selling their Bitcoin that goes back onto crypto exchanges are people who are annoyed and bored and agitated that prices haven't hit 100,000 already. It's always just the short-term wallets. Those coins get accumulated. The Bitcoin that's being mined isn't being put onto the market. The people who are mining it are selling off what they need to keep their lights on, but they're keeping the rest for themselves. The coins that are being sold off by the people who are mining it are being accumulated by wealthy people. We know this. It's in the news. As they continue mining, as the amount of Bitcoin that goes, that comes out every 4 years gets less and less, those coins will not enter the market. People will be desperate for anyone to sell, for anyone to make a wrong trade, for those coins to go back onto the market. It won't be the tens of thousands of Bitcoin. It'll be fragments of Bitcoin that are going to be bought up immediately. Your friends and your family are going to be desperate to try and hold any amount of Bitcoin. When the market goes back up and we hear again, it's the same loop that these people, new Bitcoin millionaires, are being minted. When we start, Bitcoin billionaires are being minted because the price has gone up by 4, 5, 6, 7x. It's the same loop. It's constant. It's over and over and over and over. To say that the US should hold the majority of the world's Bitcoin, you've gone too far in the other direction. He should be advocating. I understand. If you're from the States, cool. You should be advocating for an equal mining throughout the entirety of the world. And you'd be like, I'd love if the US had 12% as opposed to 8%. If you're advocating for the... It's crazy. It's crazy where we are right now. And then for people to agree with him, you want Bitcoin to fail. You want this entire system to crumble. I think that's going to do it for this video. It's incredibly sad the direction that the market is going in, the mindset of people. I see a lot of people online keep talking about that Bitcoin is the only thing that matters to them. Like, stop. Like, that's not normal behavior. Like, go outside. It's not a joke. Go figure out another hobby. Go have fun. Go play a video game. Go do jumping jacks. Take your dog out for a stroll. Go fishing. You're missing the entire point of this market. But it's already in the hands of rich people. Like, it's literally already gone. These people are accumulating thousands and tens of thousands of Bitcoin every single day. Yeah, okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.